Chapter 24. On October 11th, the 2-year anniversary of Aalliyah and Jeramie dating, Jeramie planned it carefully to make it even more special than the previous year. He got up extra early to begin the preparations that he had been working on for a while now. In order to get the day properly started, he had to go to the preserve and get a few things set up. It had to be perfect, or else it wouldn't work the way he needed it to. The hard part was the time limit he had to get it all in place before Aalliyah would wake up alone. Fortunately, the door of the preserve opened and Nate came to his aid. Nate was never an early bird, so he didn't get up at 4 a.m. like Jeramie did to begin setting up, but he still came to lend a hand. The two worked quickly and kept a careful eye on the clock, seeing it was approaching 7:30, and often Aalliyah would naturally wake at 8 o'clock. They finished the last part, and Jeramie rushed off. Meanwhile, Aalliyah started to stir. She rolled over, trying to steal a few more minutes of sleep, but couldn't. She opened one eye and saw it was 7:45. Knowing she wasn't going to be able to fall back asleep, she decided to get up and join Jeramie in the kitchen. She emerged from the bedroom and saw the kitchen empty. "Jeramie?" she questioned, hoping he'd answer. She looked through the glass door to the patio, but he wasn't there. The bathroom door was wide open, so he wasn't there. She started getting anxious and checked her phone to see if he had left her a message as to where he was, but there was nothing. Her breathing increased and tears threatened her eyes. Just then the front door flew open and Jeramie entered. He saw her troubled eyes and ran over to her. "Oh, Aalliyah, I'm so sorry," he cried, pulling her into his arms. She started shaking, and he knew tears were falling. "I didn't mean for you to wake up alone. I promise I will never abandon you." Ever since Nate heard Aalliyah, Jeramie knew she was terrified he too would leave her and go off with another woman. It gave her reassurance falling asleep beside Jeramie and waking up next to him in the morning or seeing him in the kitchen. She didn't doubt his love, but her fears would get the worst of her when he didn't inform her where he was. Jeramie kissed her forehead and assured her. "I love you. I love you too," she claimed. "I'm really sorry. I had planned to be back before you would awaken. Where were you?" "The preserve. Is everything okay?" "Yes, it's fine. I had to get something ready for today. You will see when we go there. For now, though, we should start eating something." The two finished breakfast and walked over to the preserve. Aalliyah opened the front door and froze. Scarlet ribbons were everywhere, crisscrossing the path and along the walls. She laughed. "Is this some sort of laser course, and the goal is to not touch any of the ribbons?" Jeramie shook his head and slipped the knot off of the coat hook. He placed it in her hand and stated, "Follow it." Aalliyah nodded and began coiling the ribbon in her hand as she walked. "You can drop it. You don't need to hold the ribbon. Trust me, there's a lot of it." She let it fall and continued the trail through her hands as she pulled the tape off of it. She paused, seeing clothespins with a photograph attached, which was her and Jeramie at the peak of the mountain the first day they became official. As she continued following the ribbon, she came to more pictures. Several were them at the beach various times. One was them last year under the mistletoe. Another of them lying in a grassy meadow watching the clouds. One was them making snow angels. There was one of them at a park keeping an eye on Nate and Lucy's son. The ribbons led Aalliyah through the first floor of the preserve and then went out the back door. She ran her hand along it and found the end tied to the animal preserve gate. Melody came prancing over, for once wearing a saddlebag. A paper sign was taped to it saying, "Open me." Almost cautiously, Aalliyah undid the buckle and lifted the leather. She peered in and laughed. It was her polka dot swimsuit. She pulled the two pieces out and met Jeramie's eyes with a puzzled expression. "You'll need it for today," he informed simply. "We're going to the beach?" she inquired, and he nodded. That was a really elaborate way to say that, but it was fun. She kissed his cheek. After an hour of driving, they arrived at Heacham Beach. Kicking their shoes off, the two started walking along the sand hand in hand. In the distance, they saw Lucy and her 1.5-year-old son running in the waves. Lucy caught their eyes and waved hello. The two lovers waved back, but then Lucy turned her attention to watching her young son. They were headed in her direction, and soon enough were standing in front of her. "Colin, come here, please," called Lucy, and her son scampered to her side. She lifted him up onto her hips so she could talk to her friends without worrying he would drown. "How are you both?" Aalliyah responded, "I am well. It is a beautiful autumn day to be at the beach. Did Nate not come with?" No, he had other things to do. How could he choose something over his family? Jeramie cut in. I asked him for his help. He helped set up the ribbons this morning. He offered to come by the preserve after we headed off to clean them up, too, though I told him he didn't need to. He also has other things he needs to do in Bourne today. Listen, my love, it's okay. Nate will be there and spend time with his family. He loves them. Lucy added, It is true. Colin and I won't stay much longer today, and we'll be heading off to be with him. How do you not have classes today to teach, though? It's fall break. Jeramie changed the subject as he glanced down. Oh, wow, look at that shell. It's beautiful. Aalliyah followed his gaze and saw the gorgeous shell, too. She leaned down and picked it up. She turned it over to admire every part of it and saw a piece of paper coiled up. Carefully, she freed the paper from the folds of the shell and unraveled the roll. In Jeramie's handwriting was the note, Aalliyah, you have found yourself clue 1. Your story started in Ireland when you were born beneath the stars, but you didn't know of that for years. Go to the spot where your story began. Hint, not Ireland. Aalliyah smiled and remarked, It is referring to my childhood home in London. Jeramie, did you have Lucy come to the beach today to set the shell there? He smirked and nodded. So now do we change out of our swimsuits and head off to London? If you ever want to find Clue 2, yes, he answered. The two of them changed and walked back to their car with Lucy. She got in her car and headed off, going a different direction, the way home, while Jeramie set off in the way of London. As they went, they ate the sandwiches that Jeramie had made earlier because they wouldn't have a chance to get lunch otherwise. They came into the busy city at 1:30, and Jeramie parked the car a block away from where Olivia and Henry once lived. The person that currently lives there was in on Jeramie's scavenger hunt and didn't mind. Aalliyah and Jeramie walked the last block together until she stopped. She gazed at the doorstep and saw a basket lying there. Tears came to her eyes from missing her adoptive parents so much and started to trickle down her cheeks. She took a deep breath and walked over to the basket. There was a doll lying with a note on top of her, just as Aalliyah had been found all those years ago. This one said, Clue 2. Here you were indeed raised and cherished your life in London, but it wasn't where you wanted to spend your life. You ventured away from home and found a little town you fell in love with. Feeling incomplete without knowing your biological parents, you surrounded yourself with stories that were finished. There you will find your third clue. Aalliyah asked, How early did you have to get up to drive all the way to London and back? Jeramie reported, I didn't. After Nate finished helping with the ribbons, he rushed off to London to place the basket. My guess is he had only left here a little less than an hour ago. So, do you know where Clue 2 leads? Of course, it's librarian Bourne. Taking the basket with them, they went back to the car, and Jeramie drove off once again, this time headed for home. He dropped the car off at their house and walked the few blocks to the library. By now it was 4:15 in the afternoon, since so much time was stolen by the road. Jeramie did his best, though, to make even the long drives fun and played songs that meant something to Aalliyah and him, and they laughed and talked. Aalliyah entered the library with Jeramie following behind. She wondered where he would have thought to stash the next clue. Would he have put it in a book, taped to the wall, or at her old desk? She decided to start at the desk because there she spent most of her time. Sure enough, a paper was folded on the desk by the mouse of the computer. Clue 3. I will send you not as far this time. Find the story that started our story. Aalliyah read it over and over again. She stared into space, trying her hardest to think what he meant. Her best guess was it was some novel, but she didn't understand how it led her to him. Sure, he had come to the library before and checked out books to read, but none that bound the two together. She met his eyes, desperately searching him for clues, and he understood she was lost. He offered, How did we meet? She answered, It was at the house. I was standing out on the deck looking at the stars. You came over and introduced yourself. Why were you there? Because she lit up, realizing she knew what book the clue meant. Nate had an overdue library book. That book is what brought us together. Jeramie nodded. Excitedly, she hurried off to the astronomy section. There she saw Nate standing. He said nothing and only smiled. Frantically, she scanned the spines of the books, hoping she would be able to recall what book Nate had checked out 9 years ago. After several minutes went by, she shook her head in defeat. Nate grinned and pulled the book off of the shelf for her. Now she knew why he had been casually standing there. Before opening the book, she turned to her boyfriend and inquired, "How in the world did you remember which book it was?" "I didn't," admitted Jeramie, "but fortunately, Nate recalled. Once again, he helped me with this part of the scavenger hunt." Aalliyah turned it to the inside front cover, expecting the paper to be right there, but it wasn't. Page by page, she turned it, searching for where the next clue was. Finally, she found it on the page that had the Star of Love legend. This one, though, wasn't folded to avoid harming the book. Clue 4. At this point, it is nearing 5 o'clock, and you know the bells will chime and the library will close for the day. Turn towards me, slip your hand in mine, and let me lead you to dinner. Then you will get another clue, but we need to eat first because that is important to sustain energy. But the spin is that it will be a double date, a true double date, with no lies or manipulation. It will be you and me, and Nate and Lucy with Colin as a way of thanking them for their help today. She did just as the note instructed and took Jeramie's hand. The three of them walked with Nate following behind the two. Aalliyah looked over her shoulder and thought, "Where is Lucy and Colin?" Nate informed, "Lucy is driving to the place and will meet us there." The restaurant that Jeramie chose was lit by candles and had white tablecloths draping each table. It was so romantic, and the food was top-notch as it could be. The four friends enjoyed talking about the day and everything else imaginable. Jeramie implored, "So, Aalliyah, did I outdo last year's anniversary?" "Yes, my goodness, you did not have to put so much time and effort into it. But I do want you to know what you are up to with the scavenger hunt," she replied. "You haven't figured it out yet?" She shook her head. "Let's review. We went to the beach, London, and the library. Are those places not significant to you? To us?" "Sure they are. Each holds a really special memory, or memories." "See, you figured it out. I was simply reminding you of some of my favorite moments together, and how lucky we are that we came this far. I showed you how every aspect of your life led you to me, and if one piece was changed, we may have never met." "But you said there was another clue." "There is. Look under your plate, my darling." She lifted it up, and sure enough, taped to the bottom was a slip of paper. Clue 5. Go to the place where my world became our world. "Is it referring to the preserve?" He nodded. Though it wasn't far, Lucy drove them over to save time. They entered and Aalliyah's jaw fell, seeing Lisa and James, her biological parents, there. She ran over and hugged them tight. They quickly kissed her forehead and then met Jeramie's eyes. He nodded to them and said to Aalliyah, "Come, this day is not over yet. We need to go see the animals." Knowing he was up to something, she went outside with her parents. Inside the preserve, Melody galloped over to them. Pinned to her mane was a small piece of paper. Aalliyah carefully undid the barrette and read the note. Clue 6, your final clue. Go to the place we were at 2 years ago, and you kiss me for the first official time. And yes, your parents can join us on this adventure. Aalliyah pointed out, "That's a 4.5-mile hike. It will take several hours, and it will be dark long before then." "Ah, you're right, my darling. Whatever was I thinking, saving it for so late in the day?" She heard the sarcasm in his voice and knew he had something up his sleeve. He grinned slyly and thought, "Do you trust me?" "Of course I do." "Good." Lisa handed him a bag, and he reached in. He pulled out a thick cloth and headphones. "With this, you won't be able to see a thing, and with these, you won't hear a sound. I'm going to put them on you for a brief moment. Once they are on, I will say something that will need you to respond in some way, like holding up a finger or whatever I say. It will be to see how well, if at all, you can hear me or the surroundings." She nodded, understanding. He tied the blindfold on first and asked, "How many fingers am I holding up?" She thought about guessing a random number in her black world, but thought of something clever. She reached out and found Jeramie's right shoulder. Slowly she slid her hand down his arm and found his hand resting at his side, so she knew it had to be the other hand. Her touch moved to his belly, and she tried to find his other arm, but couldn't because it was hovering in the air, so she moved her hand up across his chest and went to his left shoulder. Down his arm she went until she came to his elbow where his arm went up. She wound her hand around his and felt how many fingers of his were standing and how many were curled up, and answered, 2. "Very clever," he chuckled. "Well, you proved the point you can't see at all. Now I am going to place the headphones on." He put them on, and the noise of the preserve faded away until it was silent. Aalliyah, when is your birthday? She didn't answer at first, but he saw her thinking about her response. 4 fingers? He grabbed her hand and stroked his index and middle finger down the center of her palm. It was their secret communication, meaning no. They had a few words they would use by touching the hand in a different way to communicate when in public, if they couldn't use their words. Mostly they used it if they were in a conversation. If either of them were feeling uncomfortable or wanting to leave, with their hands interlocked, the one would tightly grip their middle finger around the other. To ask if they were okay, when their hands are interlocked, lightly the one would run their index finger on top, between the first and second knuckle 3 times. Yes, they would affectionately squeeze the other hand. Jeramie reached into the bag Lisa had given him and pulled out a harness. James, get behind her in case she falls, he ordered, and Aalliyah's father obeyed. Jeramie placed his hand just above her right knee, and she jumped startled. Gently he tugged at her leg, trying to get her to move it. She picked up on what he was asking and went to take a step, but he quickly threw his hand on her chest, stopping her. He took her calf into his hand and moved it up forward a bit and then lowered it. He put his hand on her back of her left leg then. Understanding he is asking her likely to step into something, she simply lifted her leg this time and didn't try to walk. She felt him rise, then the straps landed on her shoulder. It was loose, but she soon felt it tighten, and it grew more firm around her legs as well. She gathered it was some sort of harness, but she couldn't understand what for. For a moment, she stood there alone in her world. She couldn't feel Jeramie anymore and couldn't tell what he was doing, but he was simply getting his own harness on. He clipped the safety latch on by Aalliyah's midsection and wrapped her fingers around a rope. Then he pulled the headphones off. She heard a loud drumming-like sound that resembled air being split. Finally, Jeramie took off the blindfold, and she gazed around. Above them was a helicopter hovering. From the base of it hung a long wired rope, and joined to their harness. Jeramie wrapped his arm around her, and she did the same to him. "Hold on tight," he warned. He nodded to the pilot, and steadily the helicopter lifted higher into the air until the two were dangling above the ground. Higher and higher it went, careful to avoid the trees. Lisa and James waved to the two from their seats inside the helicopter. Jeramie grinned and kissed Aalliyah's cheek. She gasped when they were above the trees. It was spectacular. Plus, it felt like she was flying. By the mountainside, the helicopter flew, and then it came to the summit. Of course it couldn't land, though, with so many trees and uneven ground, so it hovered at the distance it could. The wired ropes extended slowly, bringing the two lower to the ground. Finally, Jeramie landed his feet on the rocks and guided Aalliyah so she wouldn't trip. Then he unlatched them from the rope and started taking the harnesses off. A ladder bellowed down from the helicopter, and Lisa and James joined the two on the summit. An assistant raised the ladder, and the helicopter disappeared. Jeramie informed, "It'll be back in an hour to take us back. By then it'll be dark, so we will ride inside like Lisa and James did on the way up. Now, my darling, turn around." She did, and her breath nearly caught in her throat. The sunset over the mountains were incredible and painted the sky in every color one could wish to see in a sunset. "It's beautiful," sighed Aalliyah. "As are you," replied Jeramie. She turned around and saw his eyes shining. He stepped closer to her and kissed her forehead as he gripped her hand in his. "I love you, and have for 4 years now, but couldn't openly tell you until the last 2. You are the best thing that has ever happened to me. There is no one else like you, no one else I would rather have by my side every hour of the day. The stars led us together, and the depth of our bond radiates back into the galaxy. I love you, Aalliyah. You always are thinking about the story you are writing of your life. So I wanted to ask you if you are ready to start another chapter with me." He dropped onto one knee and pulled out a ring from his pocket. "Will you be my forever to my always? Will you marry me?" With tears pouring down her face, she cried, "Yes, of course. I love you so much, Jeramie." She threw her arms around him and hugged him tight as they shared a powerful kiss.